Yo, 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 what up? Let's play this new intro first, and then we'll get started. Here we go. It's a show about stuff. I was like on a Seinfeld kick, and I was like, oh, maybe I should put a show about nothing, but we talk about things. It's not a show about nothing. And technically, neither was Seinfeld. But anyway, I wanted to do a late night stream tonight and do something a little bit more creative. I think that's kind of been some of my issues lately is I don't create as much as I used to, and there's many reasons for that. Obviously, health being one of them. I just don't have the energy or the will sometimes. Um, but tonight was a different story. I slept a lot today, and I get my vaccine shot in the morning, and I was like, you know what? I just want to do something different. Like I want to do a couple different things. So I posted a video earlier, a Seek and Destroy episode, where I remodeled the room, so you can kind of see why it looks the way it does right now. Although I do have, let me widen this so you can see it a little bit better. And tonight I'm gonna listen to some music. I'll have some Mike Shinoda playing on in my headset here, but you guys won't be able to hear it. I don't want any copyright strikes on this episode, especially from Mike Shinoda because I like him. But so tonight I'm just going to be hanging out. I'll probably be listening to some music. Hopefully there'll be people that pop up in the chat. But if not, it's all good. I'm going to be going over kind of my thought process for this script I just wrote. I wrote a short story called Is It Yesterday Yet? Which is heavily influenced by my real life situation and some of the stuff that's going on right now in my life. But it's also inspired from Mike Shinoda's album Post Traumatic, which he created after the passing of his friend and bandmate, Mike Shinoda's bandmate, Chester Bennington, who passed away 4 or 5 years ago now, tragically. And so I've always been a fan of those guys like Linkin Park and some of the stuff Chester's done on the side and some of the stuff Mike's done on the side, like Fort Minor. And I've kind of liked their stuff. They're very talented people. And some of the score music they've done for like the Raid and things like that. And I don't know, I get really into those guys. And so I was, I can't imagine how hard it was for Mike to pick up and keep going, but yet he did. And so I really liked that about his this album that he's created. So I figured I'll probably listen to some of that tonight in my headset without getting copyright strikes. But what I'll do is I'll go over the story because some of this is based on my real life and some of it's actually just things that the music inspired me to change. So it's not 100% accurate of what's going on in my life. But that's because some of the influence also came from this album as well. So let me get this comment here. What's up, Tristan, the filmmaker? How you doing? But if you do want to read this story, I have it on my Instagram. So you can check out my Instagram. I'm just, depending on when you watch this, I don't know if I'll ever change it one day, but you can look me up on Instagram, Seek Donnelly, SIIKE DONNELLY, under the name right now at Venom Vlog, VENOMVLOG. So if you go check out that on Instagram, at least right now, that's my current handle on Instagram. And you can read on today's date, April 19th, 2021. I posted in 3 different posts the entire 15-page story. So you can read them in 5 pages at a time on my Instagram. And apparently I did it today on Tristan's birthday. So happy birthday, Tristan. Welcome and happy birthday. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Awesome. So I have, like I said, I have the script here up on my tab. Is It Yesterday Yet? So I went back and forth. We'll start with the title. I actually went back and forth on the title. The title was not something that was inspired by anything written by Mike Shinoda here. Although I do like this track I'm listening to right now, which is a Place to Start, I think is the first track on his CD. And I was thinking about that concept of like after something big happens in your life, after a massive change, whether you lose someone or whether you have an epiphany about yourself or you realize you want to change something in yourself, or no matter what it is, you hit that big moment. And I guess the hardest thing is after that is trying to figure out where you're going to go from there. That's probably one, the scariest as well as the most exciting on some level. And like a blend of the two, and you're just kind of like this range of emotions, this barometer that just keeps going back and forth, back and forth. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how my life a lot of times is in this bubble of memories, where it's like I don't really have a lot of memories. I have knowledge of things, like I know where I was born, I know my mom's name, I have like information or data, but there's no like emotional tether to a lot of it. I just say it, I just say like, oh, that happened to me, or this, or I did this, or it's like that's kind of how I react to things, because I have knowledge of it, or I guess data, but I don't have like the things that people, I guess, tether to their data, which is emotions and things like that. It's and memories, and so that's where I struggle. So I realize that I can only remember back to a certain point, which is around the time my brain aneurysm rupture in 2010, and I have knowledge of things before, but I don't really have memories of them, and I certainly don't have any visual memories of them. So I was trying to think of a title that kind of captured that a little bit, but also set the goal of what the story was about. So I went through a bunch of different titles, and one of them, the two I whittled it down to was "Is It Yesterday Yet?" which I feel like is, you'll see as we go through the story, is kind of the goal of the main character, is to get back to yesterday. And yesterday being a term I use for not just the day before the current day, but yesterday meaning the day, or before his aneurysm rupture, or the life he had before his aneurysm rupture. So that's where some of the parallels of myself and this character come in. And then I also wanted, and then the other title was Time Traveler, because as you'll see as we go through the story, it jumps times. Like normally when you're writing a script, you have the character's name and you'll give them their age. So you'll have like Chris, 39. You don't always do that in scripts, but you do sometimes. And I thought it was really important to do that in this script, because we literally jump from 39 here to 39 there to 29 in this scene and 52 in this scene. So you're literally jumping moment to moment in this character's life. And that was a big deal for me. I really wanted that to be kind of the focus, kind of the focus of that. That's awesome that you're getting some Marvel Legends for your birthday, Tristan. That's really cool. I hope you get some good ones. So forgive me if I get behind on comments. It's technically the Seek and Destroy episode, but because of my short-term memory issues, sometimes I might try to focus on the story. So if you want to ask questions about that too, let me know. And if you want to list what Marvel Legend figures you're going to get, let me know too. And I'll get to the comments. I'll take breaks and go back and forth. So I have this Chris 39, Chris 52, Chris 29. So basically we don't go before Chris's 29th year. That's kind of, 28, I guess, 27, 28 is kind of my stopping point of memories. But so the character is 29. I can't remember why I did that. I wanted to say, maybe it was because I wanted to keep the math simple. And at first I was only going to jump 10 years. So it was going to be like 29 to 39 to 49 to 59. I think that was my original plan. And then I was just like, but then this can't, like there was things that I ran into complications. So I had to like tweak things. And then I actually had to do real math later on. Not hard math, of course, but so the impetus of this story is, for those who don't know, and who haven't followed my channel and stuff, or are new here, if you're new here. So I used to be a comic book writer and a writer, and I'm still a writer technically, because I'm finishing up a trilogy of books I'm writing right now. But I kind of swore that I wouldn't really do much after this creatively. I didn't want to. I kind of want to just let those 3 books come out between this year and next year, and just kind of walk away from all of this. But then a friend of mine named Nathan asked me to join this writing group of his, and so I joined up. And we meet every other Wednesday, and we do like a Zoom chat kind of thing, and we just discuss ideas, talk about things. And these guys are very talented. They were like, I'm really blown away and humbled by being asked to come hang out with them because I was like, well, not humble, maybe humble is not the right word, because I wasn't like like pompous or anything before then, but it was just it was a really nice thing to be asked to come be a part of. And at first I kind of was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can add another thing on to my life right now. I don't want to, I'm going through so much. I don't want to deal with things, and I certainly don't want to deal with creative things and give feedback to people. Like there was a part of me that was like, that's a nice offer, but I don't want to be a part of it. But that's just me being stubborn and being like selfish and stuff. So I was like, go to do one and see how you feel after that. And I really enjoyed the first meeting. Those guys were amazing. The guys who we are part of the group with, and I guess the group's going to be expanding soon too, which is pretty cool. And I was just really blown away by their stories and their ideas. And the main reason I think I was hesitant to go in is because, like I said, I used to be an editor and a writer too. And I've had people bring stories to me where they go, oh, check this out, or, tell me what you think of this. And there was in most cases, I didn't like the stories that were presented to me. I thought they were too similar to things that were, popular at that time. They were like trend following stories, but done with like half the talent. And not to be mean, but that was my opinion of it. And so I wasn't sure. So, but these guys were bringing me like original ideas, like things that I haven't seen really done before, or trope that was done differently. And I was really impressed by that. So it inspired me. And I said, I really want to write about what I'm going through right now as just journal entries, because I've been, I'm a brain aneurysm survivor, and I've been going through that stuff over the past, for the past decade. But now I'm starting to slip into almost like an early onset dementia. And so I've been struggling with things I've just done or things I'm working on, or, like focusing on stuff. And I kind of drift a lot, and I lose track of time, it seems. And I thought I was going crazy at first until I actually went and got an evaluation, and then a second opinion too. And it's been a little tough. I'm trying to keep work. I'm trying to make sure I can still work. I want to work. That's the one thing. I don't want to not work. I like working, and it keeps my mind active, but I have issues sometimes. And at work, I've ran into a couple of episodes I've had at work already. Hey, Riddle John, what's up, dude? Welcome. As Riddle John will attest to, there was literally a time I was working with John at Lego here, and I forgot who he was for a while. So I started keeping journal pages. A lot of this started happening after my last seizure, which was around Christmas time, which forced me to have to quit my job at Lego, because now I can't drive at night anymore for a while. So, and Lego was my night job essentially. So I couldn't do the job anymore, which sucked, because I liked, I liked Lego. I like working for the company. But I also was killing myself doing two jobs at once. So I had to take care of myself. So this started off as journal entries and observations, things I noticed, patterns that I do, patterns I've noticed in my mom, because obviously I talk to her a lot. But to be critical of my mom, I would say there are some things that she does that I don't like, that she does to me, and the way she treats me that I don't like. And she does a lot of things that that are great, obviously too. But there are some things that I've noticed she does that don't make me feel good, like the way she talks to me. And I think that's just because of I don't know where that comes from, actually. So I wanted to kind of explore that, but I can't talk to her about some of this stuff, because when I do, she blows up and she kind of yells at me and blames me for stuff. And so I don't like that she does that either. So I wanted to write about it. So I started writing in my journal and just keeping up my journal. And then eventually I just came up to this point where I'm like, well, I was listening to this album, this Mike Shinoda album. So, I'm listening to A Place to Start, but then there's this other song called Over Again, which is the second track on the song, where he says, when you say goodbye to somebody, you don't always say goodbye the one time. It's numerous goodbyes. And that made me think of my life, how many times I've said goodbye to people and it wasn't a final goodbye, or of course it's never a final goodbye in a lot of ways, especially if you're like a spiritual person. But I noticed that I've left LA a few times in my life, and I've come here to Florida. And although I do like it here in Florida, I really miss Los Angeles. even though I was struggling out there, I'm struggling a little bit here too for different reasons for sure. But LA was the only place that felt like a home to me, because after my memories got taken, like that's all I remembered. Was I remembered LA the most. I had the most knowledge of LA. And then I moved back there and started rebuilding a life for myself. And for 10 years, that's what I did. I got Echo. I made friends out there. I connected to people. I went and got to be a part of Harmontown and Dan Harmon's group. And that led me to meeting other people in those circles, and being parts of other shows they do, like Dustin, and Feral Audio, and like his other stuff, like with Matt Dwyer. And I built a connection out there. It's not that I'm not building connections here. I certainly am. But I just miss it back there a lot. I don't feel like I'm home here. And now that I've been here a year, I can confidently say that, where I feel like I don't feel like I don't feel like I fit in. Well, it's not that, I guess. I know I fit in with people. I can get along with people. I'm not an asshole, so I get along with a lot of people. But it doesn't feel like home to me. And it's weird, because I used to live here, and I thought maybe, that's why I picked this place to move back to. But then I started having all these feelings. Like, I don't like that I moved back to Florida. So let's deal with that. Let's deal with that in the journal and write about that, and let's deal with these emotions and these feelings head on, instead of like tucking them aside or bottling them up or dismissing them. You keep coming back to this point. You've been here a year now. You keep coming back to this point where you regret moving your whole life here. And it's because I did. I moved everything. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I miss you guys too. And you're right. In the long run, this is better. But I was like, I picked up my whole life kind of at a time where I really didn't want to. Everything was kind of thrust on me. Like, health was declining. Doctors were recommending, you should go be back by family. Other people that were in my life were saying that too. I think now it was just people at Lego wanting me to leave Lego and not wanting me to be there anymore. So a part of them were being nice and saying, yeah, you should go back with your family. And part of them were like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Probably. Because, me and a couple other coworkers, we stood up to the higher ups because of how we felt we were being treated. And that sent a lot of ripples. And as Ray Fisher will tell you, and other people will tell you who stand up for themselves in their line of work, that there's usually some sort of retaliation, whether they admit to it or not. There's always some kind of blowback. And so we were going through that because we stood up to, the people who were definitely mistreating us in a lot of ways, I feel. And it caused a bad work environment. But I'm sure some of those people were kind of like, yeah, well, you're not helping the situation, Seek, so why don't you get out of here? And it's like, well, I'm standing up for myself and for other workers that work here, even the people who don't like me. Not trying to pat myself on the back, but that's what I thought I was doing. And other people who agreed with that stood up too, and it was good. I thought we made at least a little bit of a difference. But again, I think that was just another push of them going like, oh, go rest, go be with your family. And then it just got to a point where I just committed to it. I said, all right, I'm going to move, but where am I going to move to? And people are like, oh, go to Florida. You used to live there. It's closer to your family. And you'll have a good, support system there, which I do. Nathan's great. My friend Josh is great. John in the chat here is great. My boss at Harley is awesome. And my coworkers there, and like, I'm definitely being looked after. So I don't regret any of that. Like, I'm with good people. But this place itself doesn't feel like home. So those feelings, I was like, I should write about that, and so when you think about all those negative things of like falling and failing and stuff, that the third song of the CD is called Watching As I Fall, that Mike Shinoda has on his album. And it's great. It's basically him talking about people wanting him to fail. And we all have that. I'm sure there's some people out there that want me to fail at things. I don't know why they want that. Maybe I was a jerk to them at some point in my life, or they just don't like me for whatever reason. But, he was saying like how sometimes falling though, you can you can use, there's an advantage there too. Like he talks about how in the lyrics he says, maybe I'm just falling to get to somewhere that they can't follow me. Like I'm paraphrasing there. Um, he says, let me see if I can find the words. Um, they're watching as I fall, they're staring as I go. I gave until my soul hurt and never told them so. They're watching as I fall to somewhere down below, but maybe I'm just falling to get somewhere they won't. So I like that. I really like that lyric of like, okay, maybe the bottom here, maybe there's something useful down here. So then I started putting that into the story. So all of those elements, all of these songs that Mike was creating, because he was releasing like one or two songs at a time, which I liked. I really liked that. And he does these streams where he like is making music and people are recommending music for him to listen to, and he'll listen to a little bit of it, and then he'll like find fans who created a track and he works with them on completing the track and stuff. And he's got a great channel. If you haven't checked out Mike's channel, you should check it out. There's good music on there, and then there's just the creative process. So all of that now set up and set in. Now let's talk about how all those elements blended into this story, how Mike's music inspired this story, and how like my life inspired this story. So we start off with, I wanted a voiceover of the main character's mother talking, which I have a name for her. I don't think I ever put it in the script, but I did come up with a name. If you'll notice, all the names in this script are from Resident Evil. They're just placeholders, really. I'll probably change the names later, but my brain is limited. I do have my limits, but Resident Evil is one of those things that always resonates in my mind. I can always recall Chris, Jill, Barry, Leon, Rebecca, all of them. So I usually, when I write stories, I use Resident Evil characters' names as placeholders. So just so you know, so in case anyone didn't notice that Chris, Barry, Jill, Ada, Leon, Albert all show up in this story, if that wasn't an indication that it's Resident Evil placeholder names, then I'm telling you now it is. But so I have these memory boards out in my living room, and the memory boards help me remember stuff. So like, so when I'm working on a project, or I have something important at work or my work schedule, I have all these dry erase boards and cork boards with notes and things pinned all over them, and kind of my 4 rules. Like if I start panicking, if I remember a huge gap of time, which has happened to me recently, I forgot a large gap of time, larger than ever before. And so I thought it was a different day. I thought I was like in the beginning of the month, but really I was in the middle of the month. I had forgotten all of that time, and it was scary. And since that could be the beginning of more of that, I've been keeping these boards. One thing I have been told by doctors is that when it comes to memory stuff, is I do have problems with memory, but I have a really good ability to problem solve. And that's comes from tests that they have you do sometimes, where sometimes they'll be like, hey, here's a wallet. You found a wallet. What do you do with it? And they want to see if you have the ability to like solve a problem, with your limitations. So I actually do really good at problem solving. So that's why sometimes I'll forget where I'm at or what I'm doing. But if I'm in the middle of doing it, I take a couple deep breaths, and I go, okay, well, why would I be counting money right now with an open drawer? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm at work, so I must be counting the register. Am I counting it to close or to open? I don't know, but let's just, try to recall the steps and just keep going through it and figure that part out after, or ask someone if you need to after. So I'm pretty good about problem solving. So I wanted that in the story, and how key that has been in my life is these boards. These boards have been everything to me for the past few months. And I keep adding, I've added another 2 boards actually. so they're expanding. So I'm keeping track of these things. So I wanted the story to start off with that, with someone waking up talking in their sleep. So Chris here is saying, "No, mom, not today." She says, "We haven't gone in years. It'll be fun." And he's like, "No, mom, not today." And then he wakes up and he realizes he's saying stuff, but he's not like, he's like, he doesn't know why. It's almost like he's quoting himself. But then something happens and he's like, almost like he remembers something. So he jumps out of bed, runs over to the wall, and writes something important on the wall before the hiccup starts again, before the like he says, or it says here, he writes something on open space and then he squeezes his eyes closed and drops the marker. So oh, hold on, we got some comments. We miss you. Oh, sorry, man. Puffin Man, what's up? Resident placeholder names. I was wondering why there was a Tyrant, Forest, Speyer, and Hunt characters. What's up, dude? Welcome. Yes, thank you for that. Thanks for the laugh. Yes, so yeah, there's no Tyrant in here, but I should have used Forest. That would have been good, or Speyer. But I wanted this story to start off with that. And the reason for that is because I was hoping the story would navigate me to a reason why we open this way. So a lot of times when I write, like Neverland, for example, I come up with the premise first, and then I start coming up with the characters, and I start brainstorming all that stuff. And then I'll write like a scene. I'll start writing scenes, and then like usually I write the first chapter or first scene, and then I go, okay, now I got a feeling of kind of the tone and the what I'm going for. Then I'll jump around. I'll jump to the end scene, or whatever. I'll jump in the middle somewhere, or just, oh, there's a cool fight. I'm in a mood to write a fight scene, and then I start piecing it all together. And that's where I like having years of editing experience, because then as a writer I can just be crazy and just do whatever I want. And then as an editor, and in the case of Neverland, I also hired an outside editor. We could beat the story up like big time and go back and forth on things, just so I can have another opinion on stuff. So with this script, though, I wrote it beginning, middle, and end. I just wrote it in order because I knew I was going to write a 10 to 12 page story. Turned out to be 15 pages, but that's because it's not really formatted correctly, and I got to edit some things out, and I'm not 100% on the ending. Like the last page, I feel like could use some work. But again, if you want to read this, you can read all 15 pages on my Instagram. Just go there at Venom Vlog and check out my post from today, which is April 19th. Well, it won't be April 19th for very much longer. It's almost midnight. So you start off, and this is where the jumping happens. And then I'll get back to comments here in a second. So Chris grabs the marker, writes on his board something important, and right before his memory starts to relapse, he squeezes his eyes closed and causes him to drop the marker. And then, boom, we cut to a doctor's office. Chris is the same age right now, where he's sitting alone. His eyes are squeezed shut because it's mirroring the scene that just happened. And his eyes open up again when the sound of the marker hits the ground. But in this case, it's his pen hitting the ground, and he has his journal. So my journal in this case, where I write all my notes in. I have like 10 journals now. So that's what makes his eyes wake up, and he's in a different environment. He ignores what's going on with the pen and everything now, and his hands start moving. So I notice this sometimes happens. My left arm, not always. For those who don't know, I've been having trouble with my shoulder and my left arm a lot lately since my last seizure. I've heard it really bad. But it's also just added on to years of problems I've had with it, and now it's just way worse. So he's his hands are moving like he's playing an arcade machine. So the one thing I really wanted to do here, which is true in a lot of cases with people with dementia, is sometimes they're physically in a place, but not mentally in a place. And that could mean a variety of things. They could mean they're stuck in a memory. It could mean they're just not paying attention. They kind of drifted. They're not focused. Could mean a lot of things. But one of the things I wanted to do here was to keep the reader, and if this is ever filmed, and made into a short film, the viewer, what I want them to kind of understand, but not be in the forefront of their mind until maybe they watch it or read it a second time, which is I want what you're seeing to not be exactly like where Chris is in the moment until the end. So it was really important to me to kind of show that in the case of someone with dementia, which is that they're not always in that moment that you're seeing them, which is very true a lot of times, and something that I am experiencing at times. So So Chris is here at the doctor's office. The doctor is talking to Chris's mom. Again, I'm pointing out the ages of the doctor and Chris's mom, who's 57 here, and Chris is 39. My mom and I are 17 years apart, but I think I made Chris and his mom 18 years apart. Excuse me. And then I put in here, his dog Albert is at Chris's feet. So Albert, obviously is not the name of my dog, but it is Albert Wesker. It's a nod to Albert Wesker. And Albert Wiley, if you're a Capcom fan, you know that they reuse names a lot too. So Albert Wiley is Dr. Wiley from Mega Man. So I have Albert here, and that was an insert. Later on, I forgot. We mentioned the dog 3 times in the story, or 2 or 3 times, and I never actually put the dog in a scene, and I should have. So I might go back and add the dog to the opening scene too. But then we have him here. And the doctors and the mom are talking about his memories and stuff. So while they're talking about that, we have his hands are moving like he's playing an arcade. So his hands doing this, like he's pressing buttons. His other hand is like it's moving a joystick. And the mom mentions that she doesn't know everything that's going on with her son because they don't really talk that much, which is true. I feel like when I talk to my mom about stuff, she just gets upset and mad. She's mad that I didn't move to South Carolina instead of Florida. She gets mad about things that I don't like, that she takes it out on me sometimes. And I don't mean to make it sound like she's a bad person, because I don't think my mom is a bad person. I just think sometimes she has misguided anger. And that comes from our family, I think. I think it's, at least I've been taking notes of it over the years. It seems like a family thing, a thing that's passed down to all of us. So it's not her fault, in my opinion. So Chris, so then we cut now, next scene. So they're talking about Chris, and as they're talking about him, he's somewhere else mentally. So he's in this memory at 29. So that would be post aneurysm, where he's at an arcade with his friend Barry. And again, Barry's just a placeholder name. I think I actually knew a person named Barry, but who was a supervisor of mine. But Barry did not work with me at Blockbuster Video, which I think this is. Well, this scene isn't from it, but I think later on I have Chris and Barry working at a video store. And the reason for that was because after my aneurysm, the first person to give me a job was my friend George at Blockbuster. His Blockbuster was closing, and he was like, "Hey, are you back up on your feet yet?" And I go, "Kind of." And he's like, "Well, why don't you come work for me at my store until it closes?" And I said, "That would be great, because I do need money." And I don't want to be on disability. So he let me come work at his store. So I guess in this case, this Barry is more based off of George, but kind of a culmination of all of my friends that I've worked for over the years. Let me catch up on some comments here. Hey, Seek, sorry I'm late. Keep going. I want to hear more on what you're writing rather than respond to chat. Okay, no problem. I'll keep going. Jazz Carnes, I heard something about dementia. Reminds me of that dementia album I listened to 3 weeks ago. It was called Everywhere at the End of Time. Think you'd like it. It's just long. Oh, wow. How's my journal? All right, let me just I'll put that note in my phone. Everywhere at the End of Time. Let me make a note of that. Cool. I keep notes everywhere, on my phone, everywhere. We're at the end of time. Dementia related. Cool. All right. The script feels very embellished, autographical, which could be interesting. Write what you know and all. Yes. So there's a lot, like I'm explaining, there's a lot of me in this, but there's also a lot that's not me. I'm not as far into the stuff that this character goes into, dementia-wise. So some of that I just did some research, and I looked for interviews with people with dementia and just kind of heard their stories and what they've been going through. So that kind of influenced some of the story. And then, like I said, mostly some of it comes from Mike's music with post-traumatic, because I was just listening to that a lot when I write in my journals and when I was writing some of this stuff that eventually became this story. So yeah, there is some things in here like that I want to get off my chest, like kind of the hump I feel me and my mom need to get over as far as like in our communication. I feel like her instinct to yell at me when like I have an incident or a seizure or something, like I don't like that. I know she's yelling because she's worried and she's wishes she was closer and she's mad because she's not closer. But also I know some of it, there is blame there. She's like, hey, you should have moved to South Carolina and lived with me and your brother. And I'm like, you guys live in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like anxiety, like my space, like there are things that I'm not ready to give up yet. And so I was like, so there's that. So some of that is in this story, but the outcome, obviously, I hope I went for a happy ending here. I believe in stories like this, when you are tugging at people's emotional strings, when you're tugging at those, they should be rewarded for the sad parts that they're going to have to experience. So I do go happy ending with this, but not like full happy ending, more like, hey, there's hope, which I think is good. I think it's a good place to end this story. So Chris is at the arcade, playing at the arcade with his friend Barry. They're talking, but again, with the dialogue, they're almost finishing the conversation from before. So the mom, is like, I don't know why. I didn't know he was this far gone. I didn't know things were this bad. We don't talk much, which is setting up their relationship. They don't get along to an extent. Like they love each other because they're mom and son, but there's a communication barrier there. So I wanted that to be clear in that scene because that's going to come back later. So then it says here, Barry's basically like, you tell your mom everything yet? And she's like, no, why? So she can yell at me again, like it's all my fault. And Barry's like, oh, that sucks, dude. I'm sorry. He's like, you can stay with me if you want. And Chris is like, no, my lease ends soon. I'm just trying to make it till then. And I like Barry's line here. He's like, yeah, but then you'll just renew it again. And we'll have this conversation again next year, showing that Barry's already been around Chris enough to know that Chris is stubborn, which is a line from a minute ago where the doctor says, I can tell your son is fighting. And she's like, yeah, stubbornness runs in the family, which is true. Like I said, a lot of this comes from observation on my part of my family. But Barry asked, why is it so important to you to do everything on your own? And actually, people ask me this. If everyone from Ryan at Golden Apple to I think even Matt Hawkins, maybe at Top Cow, asked me this once. Like, people ask me, like, why do you keep going? Like, why not just be on disability if you're in so much pain? Like, why put yourself through tucking it away and appearing normal and going to work every day if it hurts? And it's like, why is that so important, I guess? And I guess at this state, I just still don't have an answer, but I just know it is. It just is. I guess because I was in an aneurysm group post-aneurysm, and I saw people who couldn't use half of their body or were affected way more intensely than I ever was. And I feel like I got unfairly lucky with how I'm recovering. And I felt it was unfair. And I've always tried to be a person who's been fair. And so when things are unfair, I don't like it. So I'm like, well, I'm not still sitting in a wheelchair. I'm not having trouble walking up steps anymore like I used to. I mean, a little bit now, but not like I used to. So to me, I'm like, I can do these things. And plus, trust me, if you go to a place to try to file for disability, as my friend Gene will tell you, who recently did it, who's also an aneurysm survivor, a lot of times you come out, like Gene came out still walking and talking and being fairly normal like me. Then they're like, okay, you have an invisible disease. So it's hard to like say you can't do stuff. So they're like, can you run a register? Can you stand and greet people? They make a list of all the things you can and can't do. Can you stand for 6 hours at a time or 8 hours at a time? And then they come up with a note and say, okay, well, you can work, and here are your limitations for work. You can work 4-hour shifts. You can work 8-hour shifts. Like in my case, they're like, you can do these things. So do them. Disability is meant for people who can't do the bare minimum, unless they choose that they want to. So it's important to me. It just is. So I like this line where Chris just goes, it just is, Barry. And I'm going to have that line come back later on in the story. So, but when he says that line, it just is, he's back in the hospital, but notice he's now 52. So we go from 39 when he's in the hospital at the beginning, to talking to his mom. Then in the memory of the arcade, he's 29. And then now we're back in the hospital with his mom, who's now 70, probably with a different doctor. And Chris is 52. So these are the three major ages I play with in the story, with a couple of exceptions. So, but again, I want the reader to be like, whoa, what is happening? Like, we are jumping a lot. But I wanted that feeling. It's very important for me to visually show what it's like moment to moment. That you're finishing conversations that you've had years before. You're starting conversations, that you, I don't know, in this case, maybe haven't had yet. So we cut back to 39 years old. So they're leaving the hospital, interior car day. And Chris's mom is like, are you sure you want to go to work today? Which my mom asked me that a lot. Just stay home. Don't push yourself. I usually push myself. So, but that usually sometimes starts arguments. So I have here, are you sure you want to go to work today? And Chris says, I don't want to fight. So one thing I do a lot with dialogue is, and it's something that this is why I'm bringing it to the writers group and why I'm sharing it with you guys. Sometimes I don't put every little step in. I know what their relationship is like. So for me, I think the best way for me to convey that is for them to talk like they normally would. So when she says, are you sure you want to work today? He says, I don't want to fight. Some people might go, why does he say, why is that his response? Why does he say, I don't want to fight with you? Oops, I need to, there we go. Let me fix that. He says, I don't want to fight. Normally some people might go, why does he say that? If you put this in a room full of executives, they're going to be like, why did he say it? You have to explain to them, like, I'm establishing the relationship. Earlier, I have the line where she says, we don't talk much. And so it's to build on that. Okay. I don't want to fight. Well, why would he say that? Well, maybe because usually they do fight. So the mom says, I won't yell at you. I promise. Okay. I was just thinking we could play hooky. We can go toy hunting like we used to and pick up the new. And then Chris cuts her off. I just want to work, Mom. Please just take me to work. So the reason that's there, so this is less real life and more narrative things. The thing he writes on the board at the beginning, it sets up all of this. So again, right now you're supposed to feel a little like, why is he being short with her? But then she addresses that. Oh, look, I'm not going to yell at you. I promise. So you're okay. So maybe in other cases, she does yell at him when he, when they have these conversations. So now it shows the mom is trying to change her behavior. And that's what sets up stuff at the end. So, so he says, I want to work, Mom, just take me there, which is true. A lot of times I just want to go to work. That somehow centers me. When I go to work, I'm given tasks to complete and it keeps me active. When I am home, I am miserable. I cannot all the time motivate myself to do things. I forget, I lose focus. I'll say like, oh, I'm supposed to do these pages of these stories today. And then I sit down and look at Neverland and it's like, I'm looking at it for the first time. And I go, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? So I have all these notes and I'm trying to go through them. And then as I'm going through them, I might forget why I was going through the notes. So it makes things like creating stuff very frustrating for me sometimes. Even videos, YouTube videos. I read a comic book series and then I'm like, I got to make a video on it. And lately, as you notice, I haven't been putting out as many. And it's because I'll read stuff and I'll go, wait, what happened in the story? So now when I read stuff, I take a bunch of notes. So now when you see me do my videos, I'm usually lit by my screen. Before, and you can go back and watch older YouTube videos of Venom Vlog. You'll see I'll say like, yeah, when I'm reviewing or discussing a comic, I like to go off memory. So I'm not sitting in front of my computer. I turn my computer off and I'm sitting closer to the wall. I just have my phone and I'm recording me. And I'm trying to do everything off memory. I've been unable to do that a lot, which is why a lot of times you see me looking off camera at images, screen grabs from the comic book to try to remember. And if I don't remember, I can just I can look at the page and understand what's going on. So, I don't want to fight. So yeah. So Chris says I don't want to fight. So it's meant to imply that they fight sometimes. But what was I saying? Oh, it's just hard to motivate myself sometimes when I'm home by myself. So I like going to work. So Chris saying I want to go to work, but then what he says next. Now we cut back to 29 years old, and Chris is finishing his thought. So the line he's saying here, he's saying in his memory, but he's also said to his mom. So I wanted lines like that in this. I wanted to connect the scenes where it's like he's finishing a thought, but in a different memory or in a different moment in time. So we cut now to Chris at 39, and he's emptying the return bin, which is something you do at Blockbuster when people drop off their tapes. You have the return bin. You used to open them up and check to see if they're rewound. I guess in the case of DVDs and Blu-rays, you don't really do that, but you just make sure the discs are in there. And then you line them all up, scan them in, put locks on them, and then put them back on the shelf. So that's what they're doing. They're just doing something like that. So my friend Nate says this a lot. He says when you're coming up with actions for your actors or characters to do, sometimes it's just like, you do things like cooking, or, librarians push carts around with books on them and stuff. You're trying to create something for you to do, because sometimes acting is tough, and it helps with the immersion of the character for actors to have an action to do. So I think about that a lot when I write characters, in case someone ever does portray them one day. And this comes actually from my time with my friend Erica, who is an actress, and she will talk about things like that sometimes. And if there's nothing written on the page, what she'll do to come up with for the character to do. I always kind of like that. So it made me look at characters differently, being her friend, and understanding what actors do. And my friend Victor was an actor too, and he did a lot of that stuff. So it helped surrounding myself with actors in LA who committed to the craft like that and who were really good at it. So here they're just filling out tapes, but he says we can do that tomorrow. He's talking to his mom, but he's also talking to Barry. You don't know about what, but you find out that he's just referring to the tapes because they're closing, and basically they're like, Barry is loading up the cart to put the tapes out before they close, and basically Chris is saying, "Nah, we'll do it tomorrow." So it works both ways. He's answering both people, and then I have again an action for Chris to do. He's taking the 5 out of the window and putting the 4 up there, basically saying the store is going to close in a few days. I wanted that in there because, like I said, after my aneurysm, I worked at a Blockbuster that was closing. So I wanted to show an end to that era, but I also wanted to show that this character, his life is not extraordinary. I think sometimes I've done some really cool things in my life, for sure. Some of them I remember and a lot of them I don't, but I've been very blessed. I didn't really want that reflected in this character. I wanted him to just be a person, someone who worked 9-to-5 jobs his whole life, and just worked in retail probably his whole life, and wasn't considered to be spectacular, but yet does things that are pretty amazing. So I wanted a little bit of that in there. Let me go back and read some comments here. Hey, Cam Frazier, what's up? Also, Andrew says, also in absolute fairness, the issue you are going through does not need a spotlight, especially as most people normally think elderly when dementia pops up. Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's a little bit of that. I certainly don't like focusing on it every day, but I do it is part of my life now. Like it's early, so it's like I don't experience it all the time. At least I don't think I do. I'm not aware of it. I live alone, so it's harder to keep track of sometimes. But I notice from people at work who kind of watch how I've been lately, and friends and things like that. Like, it is become noticeable. But yeah, I'm not. It's not so much about shining a spotlight on something as more it is to get certain emotions off my chest, and that's where the inspiration from Mike Shinoda comes from. His album is more, it's not him shining a spotlight on his grief and confusion and anger over the loss of his friend. It's more of him dealing with it and getting those feelings out in a constructive way. And so in a creative way. And that's where I say, when I say this is inspired by post traumatic, it's not so much the lyrics of the songs that inspired this story. It's Mike's journey of dealing with something tough and then folding it into his everyday life and then continuing, and then finding a creative outlet for those feelings. Because if you listen to lyrics, some of his songs, he talks about how he's mad about things, he feels selfish at times, and he lists all these human emotions. I'm like, I love that. I think that's a great way to express yourself as a musician. My outlet is writing, and even though I try to lean away from it and not write so much, I was like, well, I it's the only outlet I have right now to get this stuff out there. And then after writing it, I knew I was going to make this YouTube video where we kind of go through the story in a way. Hey, thank you, Cam Frazier. I'm glad you find it interesting, and thank you, Jas, for jumping on that too. As said in Inception, what people want is catharsis and emotional resolution. Rewarding, held out hope isn't terrible. A movie or anything where you're endlessly stomped on is boring. I mean, I agree with that. And I can relate to why it is important to do on your own so damn much. To do as much as you can is part pride, part if you can do this, then what can I do? There's a little bit of pride, of course. I'm not opposed to admitting that, but I don't think having a little pride is a bad thing either. I think a lot of times social media paints some of these emotions that we have as like real negative things, but I'm like, why can't we feel pride in stuff though? Like, I mean, I know if we feel pride in something, other people are going through other emotions, and sometimes people don't want to see that. They're like, oh, I don't care that you're proud of something. Like, I'm going through this, and and things are, and the world's about me right now, and I can understand that. But I don't think that should stop someone who has struggled and then succeeds at something from feeling pride, and I certainly don't. I think this story was me dealing with that. Like, I don't like patting myself on the back for stuff, to be honest with you. And I think doing those boards out there and trying to make the progress I'm making and fighting this, I there is some pride I take in that. The fact that that even though I say I give up, and that when I sit at home I do nothing, there's evidence to prove otherwise, that I'm not giving up, and it's on that board. It's on those boards out there. So I do take a little pride in that, and I wanted that to be a thing in this story. So you'll see when we get there, like if you haven't already read it, there is that moment at the end. But I agree with you on the cathartic and emotional stuff. Like, I don't like things that are just dour for the sake of being dour, and they just keep stomping you and stomping you. Life does feel like that for sure. But for us to admit that there's never an upside when you're getting stomped, that's also disingenuous, I feel like. So I really wanted to hold out on, I wanted some hope in this story for sure, because I have to have it. Why else would I create those boards, and why else would I do the things I'm doing and still go to work and still function if I didn't have hope, even if I don't like to admit it to myself? So but I like that, what you said. If I can do this, then what can I do? Like, what can I do? What else can I do? And I agree with you, man. And I know you know that. I know Cam Frazier feels that way. And there's a lot of people who have come to me in private on this channel and told me what they're going through and the obstacles they do. And that inspires me. Like, though I get like that when people go like, oh, dude, you inspired me to do something. I'm like, oh, I'm not here to really inspire anyone to do anything. I don't react well to those kind of compliments, but I certainly love getting inspired by you guys and the stuff you guys tell me. So I guess I understand where people come from. As an audience member at Eber, putting every little stop in often comes across as insulting the audience's intelligence and ability to figure out their own. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, so I think I was talking about that earlier, about the conversation, right, with the mom and the doctor, and the yes, yeah. So that's the thing. I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. The audience, Nathan always says, people will figure it out or they won't, and you can't do much about it sometimes. So with dialogue, I'm like, well, people are either going to get that they fight based on the dialogue that's there, or they're not. Like that. It's just how it is. Yeah, I'm okay. I think I spaced out for a second. When did I space out? Andrew says, I like that, using conversation and thought to stitch the time periods together. Yeah, that's important to me on this story. Hello, sorry I haven't been commenting. Hey, that's okay, Twisty Sword. Thanks for hanging out. Yes, while I can't identify with your exact health issues, I have my own problems and have elements of that into a pair of scripts that examine it through a horror tinged lens. See, and there's nothing wrong with that. I saw someone was saying like, "Oh, have you ever thought about doing this as a comedy, like a dark comedy or something like that, or or you could put it in an action story or a superhero story?" And I don't. Anyone out there who has a story to tell like this, doesn't matter how you put it out there, through a song, through a short story, a movie, a poem, a piece of art, a painting, like it doesn't matter. Like just, it is good to get it out there. And trust me, as someone who just finished this, like I do feel a little better as far as like, at least now I know that I got this feeling out there and that I got my opinions on like, things I need to work on about myself, things I think I wish my mom would work on a little bit. Like I get, and like my admiration for like Mike Shinoda and his work and what he's overcome and stuff, like all that. It's like that's all that now is on paper, so I that's good. I mean, I'm glad I got it all on there. Let me get 2 more comments. We'll get back to the story. Too often health issues in media are defined by people who don't know what they're talking about because they haven't experienced it. I mean, that is, and I don't fault people for trying to like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, you have to be black to write a black character, or you have to have a brain aneurysm to write a movie about someone with a brain aneurysm. Like, I don't think that's true at all. I think if you're talented and you're a good writer and you know how to do research, I think you can make it work. The problem is that a lot of times writers and stuff will do that research, and then some executive will sit there and go, well, that doesn't make any sense, or that's too complicated for an average audience member to understand. And that's where I get pissed off, because I'm like, the average audience member that goes and sees your movies, they know someone who's experienced this health issue or is going through this, or they know someone who's autistic or on the spectrum or has schizophrenia or something. And if they don't know, they can watch a YouTube video about it or see it online somewhere or see a news broadcast about it. So I think that's really shitty of executives to kind of step in and say, oh, an audience member won't understand that. It's like, no, they will. They will very much, most likely. So a lot of times things get changed and watered down because some executive is like, well, that's not clear. People aren't going to understand. It's like, yeah, give people a little bit more credit. They go through these things. Like, just because you're some rich piece of shit executive that doesn't understand people, feel free to voice your opinion, I guess in a creative summit like that. But they, executives should lose more of those battles than win, I feel. Agree, Cam, or people want to make them the health issue, orientation, ethnicity, etc. The only see, and that's the other thing is about, we talk about people and characters. Yeah, people do need to have faith in their audience. I agree. Like you said earlier about the spotlight, Andrew, like me going through this, that's not who I am. It's something I'm experiencing, but it's not who I am. I am Sikh. I am a nerd who has a dog. I love my dog. I live alone. I read comic books. I play video games. I love Resident Evil. To me, those are me. Like those define me. Like those help define me, I should say, because seeing my love for Resident Evil and why I love it, when you watch those streams of mine, it makes you understand me. It makes you understand my point of view on that. When I read comics and dissect comics, it makes you understand me. When you see the jobs I've had, it makes you understand my work ethic and why I push myself so hard. It's like, it's just, those are the things that make me who I am. My aneurysm and dementia and all these other things are just things I'm experiencing, but they aren't me. So the point of this story was to juggle that. So again, talking about things that tie together. Earlier you mentioned, so Barry, oh, hey, I forgot to ask, how's the new puppy? So remember, at 29, Chris is just getting Albert. He's just getting his dog. So then we cut to 10 years later when he's 39 and he's walking his dog and talking to his mom on the phone, which is something I used to do in LA all the time. And Echo is losing his sight. So again, sometimes I'm just looking for dialogue and I'm like, what would I say here? And how would I answer this question that Barry asked 10 years earlier? If he says, hey, I forgot, how's the new puppy? 10 years ago, Chris would have said, oh, he's great. He's, teething, he's learning to walk and all that stuff. Now he's 10 years later, he's saying, the vet says he's losing his sight. It wasn't supposed to be like this. So the other reason I did that is because assuming this does get shot as a film, I was thinking different actors would play the character at different times, but 29 and 39, I looked at pictures of myself. I don't look that much different between 29 and 39, to be honest with you. Maybe a little change in weight, but I don't look that much different. Actually, I looked eerily identical to what I looked like 10 years ago. So I was like, well, it could be the same actor might end up playing this part as 29 and 39, which would make sense if that same actor played it. So then I needed the dialogue to help show that time had changed. So when he answers, vet says he's losing his sight, that's not typically something you would say about a new puppy. I mean, yes, in some cases something could happen to a new puppy where that happens, but it's not typical. So again, I wanted to show a verbal time jump as well. But then we go to Chris at 52 again, and he's sitting in a chair. His mom enters the room with 2 glasses of tea, placing them on the table. And Chris is finishing the conversation he had with his mom on the phone. So the vet says he's losing his sight. And then he says it wasn't supposed to be like this, which is something I have said to my mom. And she said, be like what? And then you jump to Chris at 52, and he says, I just don't want to outlive him. Which is true. I am scared of outliving Echo because I don't think I'll be able to handle it very well. Echo's been there with me for a long time now, since a year after my aneurysm. I can't picture my life without him. So it's going to be tough the day I outlive him if I do. So so then so the mom realizes what's happening. Like, what do you mean? She's, so instead of asking, like, what do you mean outlive him? Again, I wanted to stay in the world that the mom is constantly dealing with this. I can't have her paint every picture for the audience, like you said earlier, Andrew. She has to be realistic in her skin in this part, right? Like, and it helps the actress who's going to play her, hopefully, if we shoot this as a short, hopefully it helps them immerse themselves more. She realizes, okay, this is daily life. She has to explain to him, this is the part where she has to explain to him that his dog is gone. So Chris says, oh, my formatting is way off on this one. Holy cow. Wow, that's way off. So I moved this to like a Google document, and so it's a little, it's formatted even worse. Oh, wow. Okay, whatever. No, we do this. Hold on. Yeah, and now we can space it. Okay, cool. So Chris says, I don't think I'll be able to handle it when he's gone. I don't think I'm strong enough. And then his mom just cries, which to me says everything, because she's trying to say what she wants to say to him. And that's when Chris, I'm keeping the theme of the problem solving. That's when Chris goes, wait. And he looks around, he goes, where's Albert? And then boom, we cut to Chris at 39 and Claire at 27. Introduce a new character here. Again, to show that time has passed. Chris worked at a video store. It closed down. So now we assume that he's been working at this clothing store for the past 10 years. And Claire looks perplexed, and she's like, Albert, because she knows the name of his dog, because the dog's still alive in this memory. And she says, he's probably at your apartment. Are you okay, Chris? And he responds, I'm fine, Barry. It just sucks that the store is closing this week. I guess I'm not ready to say goodbye. Showing her now, again, that was one thing that was important to me when I'm writing these scenes. Not until we get to that point in the story do I want Chris to fully be in the moment and know where he is. I want to show how often and how frustrating it must be to not be in the moment all the time. So that, like, there's that phrase that people tell me all the time, like, just live day to day, live in the moment. Chris cannot live in the moment. So I really wanted to emphasize that in the story. So he says, so when he says that to her, she's like, okay, my name's not Barry. So that's when she knows something is wrong. And so she asks him, like, do you know where you are? Then we cut to the video store, where the store is now closed. And him and Barry are, I assume, sitting on their car outside of the place with a beer in their hands. Because I just always, like I said, assumed for Chris that that's his life. He's just worked at these places. He's worked at this video store until it closed, and now he's working at a clothing store probably until it closes one day. So I wanted that. I really like that part of my life. Like, I used to do all these creative and things where I would work in scripts and TV and movies and all that stuff. I really like working in retail and working a simpler life. It's good for me and my health, but I also think it's good for my creativity. But it also helps me, I think, write more grounded people, because now I just am interacting with people all day who come from different walks of life. At Lego, we had every different type of person on the face of the planet that was a Lego fan. Didn't matter skin color, ethnicity, race, I guess they're all kind of the same thing, gender, religion, abilities. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Truck driver, everyone from truck drivers to people who worked at restaurants to movie producers to Nicholas Refn, who makes films. He used to shop in our store. It doesn't matter. Everyone came in and bought Lego. So it got me to interact with so many different types of people. And it made me learn a lot about people. And it made me learn that people deep down are good people. You see those instances on TV where people are like Karens or on YouTube and they're screaming at each other. You certainly have that. I've been people threatened to kill me at Lego before. And there's been times I've even raised my voice, which is very unprofessional and not something I've ever liked about, it's happened like 2 times, but I don't like doing it, but it happened. We're all human, but these are the things that I think about with this character. I'm like, what if you take out that part of my life where I went and did all these things where I was working on movie sets, and what if you just took all that out and just focused on the stuff that I like doing now, which is the retail stuff, and just have Chris have a lifetime full of that. So that's kind of what I do. So he has this moment where she says, do you know where you are? And he is outside the video store tapping beers with Barry, putting a hand on his shoulder saying, I'm here, Barry, I'm here, showing support for Barry. But that, again, those words are still being heard in present day with Claire. So Claire calls Chris's mom and she comes in. I'm here, Chris, it's me, Mom. Mom, you came to see me. How did you get a flight to LA? So this is where Chris, now at this age of 39, he is now closer to he's having more bad days than good days. And his mom tears up, and he doesn't realize that he is now living on the East Coast again. So the mom says, thanks for giving him a job for all these years. Thanks for watching over him. And then she says, he'll always have a job here. He's a damn good salesman. He's always on time-ish, despite all this. And some of that is pulled from people I've had that I worked for. Even though I feel like I got screwed over a little bit over at SeaWorld, I feel like something Tim said to me once was, even though he made me feel like garbage one time, he did apologize for that, and then said something more positive to me. And then my current supervisor, Jose, has said really kind things to me. And I hope that no matter how bad I get, I can still function on enough of a level to where I could fold t-shirts. So I guess this is me with that little hopefulness of hopefully I'll still have a job. Hopefully they won't let me go because I forget things. Hopefully I can still have enough of me to do the job. So far, I feel like I do. I worked by myself last Monday, and my sales goal was $3,000, and I did $3,500. And then the other day, Sunday, I remember that in the morning, I sold a $400 helmet right when I clocked in, my first customer. So I'd like to think that right now I'm doing good still. I just have moments, bad moments. So I'm hoping that one day Jose will say that about me and say, hey, Seek, as long as Seek can fold shirts, he has a job here. That'd be nice. So then exterior house, we cut. Chris is now 52. She says, so he's looking around. He's like, he's confused. He goes, despite where, like, where am I right now? And then this is the scene. So let me cut over to the comments real quick, and then we'll jump back to this scene. As someone who has lost dogs, I just had that sudden revelation hit me all over again. What hurt, and having the mom crying in response to, oh crap, he is having another episode, is really sadly realistic. Yeah, it rang true when I was reading it. Although that has not happened to me, I hope it never does. But I could imagine that scenario, and it felt very real to me. There's nothing wrong with a simple life. That routine and familiarity is helpful. Yeah, routine is everything to me. I have to get things down to a routine. So like in the past month, past month and a half, my schedule has kind of bounced around because of events we've had at work and other things. This week I'm starting a new schedule, and I need to stick to it. Like I am not. It's hard because if you add my 2 checks together, they are not enough to pay my rent. But if I hit my sales goal and I get a little bonus for commission, that's enough to put me over to at least pay rent and maybe in some food. And then that's where my mom sometimes will come in and be like, or my friend Alex and his mom, they've helped me out a few times before, where they're like, hey, we'll pay this bill for you, or we'll give you some groceries or whatever. We'll give you like $50 worth of groceries, which I can make last for like, 10 days worth of food, if not 2 weeks sometimes. Cause I eat cheap and I get like rice and pasta and just make a bunch of that stuff, or salads and stuff. So, I can stretch $1 when it comes to food. I've gotten pretty good at it. My friend Gene is probably way better at it than I am. Cause unfortunately has the same struggles I have, but without a job. And he's been unable to get a job, with everything going on, and unable to apply for disability, which is crazy to me, because even with all the doctor's paperwork he went in with, Florida still wouldn't clear him for disability, which is a song that's very familiar to me too. So that's why when people say, oh, why don't you just sign up for disability? I'm like, it's not that easy. And 2, I can do things, and I'm going to keep proving that to myself. So there's stubbornness there, and a little pride, like you said. But calming can give you mental space to compartmentalize. That's what I always tell my supervisor. So you understand, Andrew, too, is like, that's what I tell him. I go, it's when I go to work, I can compartmentalize. I can make a list of like, okay, these are the 3 things I want to do today. I want to organize the helmet room where all the motorcycle helmets are, and put them in numerical order, which also helps keep my brain active. The other day, I alphabetized all the sunglasses, and put them on the spinny rack, and then moved some other ones over to this spinny rack, and organize the boxes for them and stuff. And then sizing, like going through the store and putting everything in size order. Like these are things that help get me through the day. And then I get to interact with people. Again, just like Lego, Harley Davidson's awesome when it comes to a wide range of people of different ethnicities and types coming in, and genders and different jobs and professions, like coming in, who are just big Harley collectors and fans and riders. And so Lego, and that's why it was such an easy job to transition into, is because it's a specialty place like Lego, and it attracts people who love that stuff, but it attracts people from all walks of life. So it's very, very similar to Lego, and it has a history as long, if not a little longer, than Lego as well. It's over 100 years old, Harley Davidson. So I really do. I like it. I like that I have that job. It's great. And it does help me compartmentalize. This whole thing is a conversation that basically lasts through an entire lifetime. Seek, this is genius and beautiful and terrifying, and I want to see this. That's very nice of you to say. I'm sorry it's terrifying. It is, but it's meant to be on some areas. Yes, this is supposed to traverse a life. So that's why originally the 2 titles I had was, Is It Yesterday Yet? Was the one title, which is the one we went with, because my friends Gene and Alex both were like, dude, go with that title. It's awesome. So I'm glad I did, because I think it's a good title. The other title was called Time Traveler. I think Gene didn't want me to pick that title because me and Gene wrote a comic book, which has never come out, but it was fully written and fully drawn, except for the backup page. I wanted like 8 pages of backup to kind of help explain the 4 rules of time travel. I thought that would have been a nice compliment to the series, and I wanted another artist to do it, but I guess, I don't know if we ran out of money, or the guy who was publishing it decided not to release the book. But it's a real shame because I think PJ, who was the artist on the book, I think it's the best work of his career, or at least up until that point. Now he's done amazing things, but I think working with him was a great experience for all of us, and it helped all of us grow as artists, working with him. And that whole book is drawn, and the first issue I think is lettered, but because the guy who funded it, we had some disagreements on some of the story elements. And then he went off to do other bigger things, and the book just kind of got lost. And it's been a regret of mine. I've always wanted that book to come out because I think it's a great comic book. I think it's a good example of what Gene and I are capable of doing. We wrote it after his aneurysm. So it was me trying to like lift him up and inspire him to, to get into things. But also it was a sci-fi story called The Last Time Traveler, about the last person who ever travels through time. And we wanted to, I couldn't write all the sci-fi stuff. I'm not a big sci-fi guy. So I was like, let me write the character stuff and I'll have Gene write the sci-fi stuff. And it came together really well. So hopefully one day, maybe long after I'm dead or something, like maybe that book can come out. Hopefully it will, because I think it's amazing. And honestly, if there was ever a Kickstarter run for it, to release it, I would shout it out to you guys to donate to it or pledge to it, because I think it's one of the best things I wrote, and I wrote it with my best friend. So, and PJ killed it on the art, but we still need those last 8 pages drawn. I feel like that book does not work without the explanation of the 4 time travel rules. So at the end of each issue is going to be 2 pages kind of showing you, how to it was showing you one specific rule, like how it goes bad and how it goes good. So yeah, one day. But I'm glad you like that. Yeah, this all takes place. It's just this whole life kind of summed up in 15 pages. So now this is the moment. So Chris says, where am I right now? When he's 39, but then he comes to when he's 52 and he's on a porch, and his brother, Leon, as Kennedy, there's a party going on in the backyard for someone's 10th birthday. And, mom goes, you're home, sweetie, you're home. And he's looking around confused. And then he looks down at his hands and he sees how old they are. And then he can't breathe and he's trying to catch his breath. And he's like, what year is it? And his mom's eyes widen and she's holding his hand and she squeezes it a little bit harder and says, Leon. She's screaming out for Leon to come up. So he runs up to the house. Everyone's attention follows. And then the mom turns back to Chris and is like, honey, you're back. You came back. And Chris is scared. He's panicking. He's having a panic attack. And his brother Leon comes over and helps him stand up. And he's like, it's okay. Breathe. That's the number one thing. You got to control your breath. You could trigger a number of other problems if you don't. So Chris is looking at Leon and then at his mom. And, he's kind of like, what's going on? You look older. What's happening? He looks out at the party and see that everyone's staring back. He has a niece named Sherry, who's 10 years old, and Ada, who's 46, is his brother's wife. And they're heading to him. So again, they're all Resident Evil characters. But like I said, I always do that for placeholder purposes. Maybe I'll change them and maybe I won't. Who knows? It's kind of fun just to kind of, as a nod to Resident Evil, have all the characters with these names. Chris says, I'm old. How old? How much did I forget? And, everyone's like, it's okay. We'll explain it. Don't worry. Just breathe one thing at a time. He mentions he's thirsty. So they give him some tea. This comes from an actual personal experience of mine. So that's a little bit of a personal experience there. And then Leon says, look, we don't get a lot of time with you when you come back to us. So let me fill you in, but you have to keep breathing. Okay. So actually I think that's something I could probably clean up. Normally it's not good to repeat information that's like that. So the mom saying, it's okay, we'll explain, just breathe one thing at a time. And then the brother saying, it's okay, I'll fill you in, just keep breathing. I could probably condense that. And maybe maybe I can even take out the dialogue where Chris says he's thirsty and maybe he can just reach for the glass of tea and someone push it closer to him. I like to trim dialogue. I'm a fan of that. I like visual storytelling. So maybe there's a note to myself where the editor part kicks in. I can clean that up a little bit. So yeah, let me make that note real quick. And while I do that, I'll catch up on comments. Let's see. Do not be sorry about it being terrifying. That is part of life, and without the undercurrent, you do a disservice. I agree. I mean, I agree to that too. You mad genius with the names. I would keep it fun, wink, and very cool. Thank you. Fun, wink, and nod. Yeah. Um, I think so. I think it'll be fun to have in there. Like I said, I always do it for placeholders. So like I turned in, well, the day before I wrote a pilot episode for a horror anthology, like a Tales from the Crypt show. I still can't talk about it. I think they're still trying to get it made. We did it right before COVID started. So it was like, I don't know if it's like on hiatus. But I wrote it, and right the day before I turned it in, I had to go through and change all the names back because they were like Chris, Barry, Leon, Claire. I had to go back and change everything. So yeah, that was funny. All right, cool. All right, so we'll just clean that up. All right, awesome. Cool. All right, so let me jump back into this. That scene where he comes back, that is the scene. I would minimize the dialogue, focus on the camera work, show the flickering of horror and terror and sadness, and rage at losing time. Yeah, so that's the thing. And so, I mean, a lot of that is going to be the actor is going to have to bring that to the table. If I rewrote this as a short story, with like as a novella type short story where it was like prose, all prose, I would put all that stuff in. I like to give flexibility to the actor too, and also, but you're right. I think the focus there should be the visuals and expressions. So I can take out some of that dialogue and make a quick note of what you just said, of like, he goes through a range of emotions, everything from, a confusion to anger, in the span of a second. Like I could put that real quick, and that won't take up but one line of prose. So there's ways to do that. So yeah, that's a good idea. But you're right. This is the scene. This is the one where, because up until now, we've had a bunch of scenes that take place. They're like half-page scenes or quarter-page scenes. They're very short scenes. Now we are in a scene that lasts for like 2 or 3 pages. So this is where you get into real acting, because the other scenes, you got to do things in short bursts. So you have to drudge up this emotion. It'll be tough for some of the actors if it goes that route where they film it, because they'll have to drudge up that emotion for 1 or 2 lines of dialogue in each scene. And that can be tough to do. So this is the time where you get to breathe and be the characters, and go through all these emotions. So yeah, I like that. I like that idea. So everyone's kind of gathering around on the porch. Chris goes, where's Albert? Is Barry here? And Mom cries again. She's already has kind of happy tears that he's back, but now she's kind of let loose because he's asking those questions. And Leon, instead of the mom trying to jump in this time, Leon, because she obviously couldn't answer that question before, she still can't really do it that well now. So Leon has to help her. And he says, look, this part is never easy. And Chris, having the problem solving things again, like I said, he can start putting two. So by this point, he's calming down, he's breathing. He can start putting 2 and 2 together. And he goes, okay, right, I'm old. So when did everything happen? And so Leon says, Albert in your arms, basically saying he died in your arms when you were 43, saying you were there for him. You were there with him when he passed. And Barry a few years earlier than that, before you moved back here from California. So basically saying that Leon or Chris came back to their hometown to be at Barry's funeral. And Chris says, and Leon says, you're 52 now, and back here with us in South Carolina. Chris struggles to listen, tearing up and lowering his head, trying to remember. I wanted to do it all on my own. I wanted to beat this, he cries. I never wanted to be a burden. And that's something I struggle with all the time. So back when I had my aneurysm rupture, when they were talking about different things they could do, one of them was surgery. They're like, if this happens, we could always do the surgery. But if that happens, you don't know. Like doctors always sometimes prepare you for the worst. Sometimes they always, typically, at least my doctors, I've always had doctors that have given me more hope than anything. But they're like, if you get the surgery, there's a chance that you won't come out on the other side. Like, you will have to stay at home with your parents, your mom, your brother. They'll have to keep an eye on you. You'll have to, you won't be able to do some things on your own anymore. Could is a possibility again. So that became a fear of mine. Oh, if I get worse, I become a burden. I have to be cleaned up and fed by these people that have enough going on. I don't want to be a burden. I would rather die than be a burden to them. So again, I'm not saying this to like make anyone feel bad or get pity. I'm just explaining how I feel. And that's why I want to get those feelings out in this story. So Chris is like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be this thing you have to take care of. And Leon, like most people tell me, they go, you're not a burden. It won't be a burden. Like it's life and we will deal with it. So Leon enforcing that, like we've had this conversation before, you're not a burden to us. Which I just feel like is a very good brother thing to say, and then so Chris looks around and that's when Leon explains who everyone is. Like, that's your niece, Sherry. That's my wife, Ada, Mom, we all take care of you. Now there is a line, I think later on, I hope I cut it, but if I don't, we'll make a note where someone says like, we'll take care of you, or we're the ones who take care of you. So I say it here. I think I took it away later. But this is where I wanted Mom to step up. So now that Leon laid the groundwork, I didn't want Leon to go on like this long expository dialogue thing, but I wanted the mom to say things that are important to her and to her relationship with Chris, but things that Chris might not know because he doesn't know that they've made progress over the years because he doesn't remember. So I had this thing, since he has these boards, he writes, hey, Mom, here are things that you can say to me that I want to hear you say. This is true in my case. I have something like this for my mom. These will be, so I know if I hear you say them, it will show me that we have a different relationship now. So this is something that comes from my real life, but I thought something that would work for the story too. So she says, we don't fight anymore. The last time you came back to us, you told me things to say that would make you feel better and breathe easier. So we don't fight. I don't yell. Albert went peacefully, and you flew home to say goodbye to Barry. So when I was trying to come up with a list for Chris, I'm like, what would be important to this guy for him to hear? He doesn't like fighting with his mom. She says, we don't fight anymore. He doesn't like hearing her yell. She says, I don't yell anymore. He wants to know if his dog went peacefully, because that would make him feel good that his dog didn't die of like get hit by a car or something like that, where it was really painful. He went in his sleep. That also makes Chris feel better, knowing that even though his dog did die, he went a peaceful way. And the fact that he got closure with Barry and came back to say goodbye to Barry. These were all things that I felt like would matter to Chris. So he told his mom to say those things to him when he is cognizant of where he is again. And now they have that opportunity. So the mom says it, and then she says, and you still work. You have a job. She says you had to stop for a while, but Claire at the clothing store let you come in a few days a week to fold shirts. Not sure I'll keep all that, but it's just there for now. But that is dialogue that is optional. I feel like we can work those phrases in together and shorten it. Leon says, we know that working and living on your own was always important to you. So normally I wouldn't say something like this, but this does set up a callback. So I do want to keep it for now, but it is something I could probably lose. But he says, sadly, though, we can't let you live on your own anymore, but we take turns driving you to and from work. And then that's when Chris remembers his boards. So now we cut to the house. This is the first time, I think, in the story that we cut from one scene to the next where everyone stays the same age. So that's why I didn't capitalize anyone's names in full here or put their ages next to them, because it's literally moments later. He had everyone walk him inside, and he's upstairs in a hallway looking at. So I just imagine right now I have a small wall full of boards. I just imagine if I get more into that, eventually I'm going to have a wall. So I just pictured this hallway. Well, I wouldn't say I pictured it because I can't really do that. But I was thinking of a hallway, because I have a hallway in my apartment, but it's like 4 feet wide or 5 feet wide. It's like very small, just like from one door to the next, and then that's the end of the hallway. Then the living room's right here. So So I was like, well, that would be neat if you had this hallway and his boards just went down one wall and went down the other wall, and that his family kept that stuff because he goes back to it sometimes. Um, and then I'm like, okay, so why though? So this is where we stretch reality and we go into what works best for the story and delivers that hope that we were talking about earlier, but also gives kind of like an arc and an uplifting ending. This is where all that starts coming in. You have all these boards with all these important dates, work schedules, anniversaries, all that stuff, list of regrets, list of hopes, list of things mom needs to say to him, all that stuff. And then you have Leon go, we don't know how you did it. Doctors neither, but you lived alone and you took care of your dog and you worked a full-time job for nearly 8 years before you came to live with us. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get 8 years or more or less or whatever. This is hopefulness, but I just thought that would show incredible determination for the character of Chris. And it also makes sense for Chris as a character because now that I look at him as a character and not just a reflection of myself, I look at him as this guy who I've painted this life in his head, in my head for him, where he's had 9-to-5 jobs his whole life. He's a worker. He is a workaholic, and he is determined to continue to work. These are the things that's important to him. So if he works that hard at that, he would work hard at this with the boards and stuff. And it would stun doctors. I feel like it would make doctors go, okay, well, he's fighting. He's a fighter. And even though he doesn't know every battle he's fought, he's somehow keeping track of his life with these boards. So that was very important to me to have all that. And to have this line here where he says, for nearly 8 years you came to, now you live with us, but for 8 years through dementia, you lived on your own. I just thought that right there in itself would be a miracle for a person or a character. So he says, so the doctor always asked why it was so important to you that you have that life. And this is a callback to earlier. And Leon says, I told him. And Leon and Chris in unison say, it just is, because that's what he says to Barry before. Why is it so important to you? It just is. And that's the same with me. It just is. It doesn't, who cares about the reason? It just is important to me to keep working and to having a normal life. It just is. Because I don't like the alternative. So mom says, I keep these up so you can see that you never gave up. You're stubborn, just like your mom. Chris's smile widens as he let out a quick laugh. He walks over to a specific spot on the board and stares at it for a moment. The words are mostly smudged and his eyes water. He says, thank you, all of you. I can't remember anything before the aneurysm. And Chris turns to his family. Leon says, we know last time you came back to us, we figured out that you were in a loop. So some of this, if this was a longer story, I would show all this. I wouldn't really tell it. But since I want this to be a short, I had to have some of the legwork done already. So when Leon says, last time you came back to us, just like mom said in the previous scene, you told us things to say that would make you feel better. Leon says, last time you came back, we had a conversation about what years you remember between. And you kept it all on the board. So now we figured out that pre-aneurysm, you don't remember that life. So you only remember post-aneurysm, but then dementia set in about 10, 12 years after your aneurysm. So you're stuck in this 12-year, 10 to 12-year loop. You're stuck in it. And Chris goes, a loop? And he's like, yeah, that's why we keep the boards. His mom says, you've been trying to break the loop ever since dementia completely set in. So this was not planned, this moment here about breaking the loop, but it is something we've talked about on our channel before about breaking the chain. We did it when we reviewed the Batman Night Cries graphic novel about how we repeat bad behavior sometimes, things that have been done to us that we repeat onto others, and that we have to break this chain. And as I got to this scene, in the beginning, that scene where Chris wakes up and he writes something frantically on his board, and then he quickly jumps into other memories and the story begins. I didn't have a plan of, I didn't even have that to be an important thing. I just had him write something on his board and that was it. I never was planning to reference that again. I was just going to have that to set up the boards. But then when I got to this point, I said, okay, now we got to think of this as a story and not just a reflection of your life. Because we're now at 52, which I'm not 52. I'm at the 39 age range where he is with his, early onset dementia. So we're not there yet. I'm not at 52. So this is where the story has to take place. So I was like, okay, let's do something with the boards and let's tie it into something in the beginning. And so I came up with that phrase, you got to like to break the loop. And I go, yeah, I've been in this, like me personally, I've been in this memory loop that only goes back to California. I can't really go back behind that. But that's the one thing I know my mom would love for me to have more than anything. And I think after my aneurysm, my mom felt like a part of me, a part of her son was gone forever because I didn't remember a whole life with her, and I think that was the most heartbreaking part for her was me telling her, yeah, I seeing her was like I was seeing her for the first time. And I parents, for those who don't know, for those who are younger and might not look at your parents this way, parents feed off of memories of you. Like they always are like, oh, when you were this age, you did this. They do that, and as they get older, it gets worse. When they become grandparents, they get worse at it, and it's all about those memories. Memories are very precious, so to parents especially. So especially when it comes with their kids, deals with their kids. So I feel like on some level, I took away the best gift, half of the best gift my mom and I had, which was our memories of each other. So I'm like, my mom would probably love for me to remember those things. So once I thought about that, I was like, that's where I want to influence a story. I want to break this loop I'm in. I'm okay with the loop I'm in. I like the last 12 years of my life, or 10 years of my life, 11 years of my life, I guess. 11, yeah. I like the last 11 years of my life. They've been good. And I don't mind being stuck in the memories of those, the ones I have, because there was a good life. But I know my mom and other people would like for me to go further and reach beyond that. And so I thought that would be good for Chris to do. So Chris's goal, ever since getting dementia, is realizing, or ever since realizing he was going to be stuck in a 11-year, 12-year loop, that he would try to break that. Like that would be his goal, his work mentality of setting tasks for himself and completing them. He has now made this task, an impossible task maybe, but one that he sets. So I bring up the problem solving thing again. Leon says, doctor says, you have amazing problem solving skills, better than most people who don't even have dementia. So then Chris turns to Sherry and Ada and says, it was nice meeting you again. Take care of Leon. They say, we will. He turns to Leon and says, and you take care of mom. And he says, we'll be here when you come back. So I think originally I had Leon say, and we'll take care of you, and we'll be here when you get back. I think him saying we'll be here when you get back is all that needs to be said there. So I cut that line. Plus he said it earlier, so I don't need a repeat of it. But here he says, we'll be here when you get back. That's all you need to know about Leon as a person and that moment and what they're promising Chris. So this is where I wanted to bring back, now that we're ending the story, the jumps, the memory jumps. So Chris now puts his hand on his brother's shoulder as Leon's eyes water, and I literally copy and pasted the scene where he does it to Barry earlier, and then cut back to the house. So Chris goes, Mom, I'm getting tired. And that's when they know, okay, he's losing focus. He's not going to be able to hold on to the here and now. He can't live in the moment for much longer. So he takes some deep breaths. The family knows what that means. Some take deep breaths, some cry. Mom nods and is about to speak, but gets interrupted because now Chris, who is looking at that part of the board where he wrote something at the beginning of the story, even though it's smudged, he's looking at it. Now he has a memory of 17. Chris, 17, is on the couch, a towel over his head. Leon grabs his backpack, who's 10 years old, and walks past his brother, heading to the front door. Feel better, Chris? Mom, I'm walking to the bus stop. Mom says, okay, have a good day. Be good. Mom says, you sure you don't want to go to the doctor's? We can go toy shopping afterwards, get you that new Stole Star figure. So I wanted to set up here that Chris has probably had problems most of his life, which I have. I've had headaches, bad ones, ever since I was a kid. My first head injury came from my father when I got hit by the butt of his gun when I was 7, I think. So I've had problems with my head for a long time. So, but I hate doctors. So Chris says, I hate doctors. We can go tomorrow. So this is him, his brain now traveling back to a moment pre-aneurysm and realizing why he probably realized the key to his memory loop is to do the opposite of what he's always denying his mom. His mom lives in a memory of them when he was younger, where she took him toy hunting. My mom used to take me toy hunting all the time. We would go look for the newest Star Wars figures in the 90s, back when they did like the orange card ones and the green card ones. We would go look for Spawn McFarlane figures, Slave Leia, when that figure came out. Like, these are all stories she tells me. These are stories I mentioned. I wrote down in my journal. I thought they were important to my mom, so I wrote them down. And it made me realize that this character, this mom, needs to be rewarded for the life she's going through, and the tough disconnect she has with her son. So I wanted to reward her and have an arc for the story. So she asked him, do you want to go looking for figures? Let's look for a Soulstar figure. Now, of course, I just put Soulstar in there because I don't own the rights to Superman or anything. But I thought this was a good way to tie it back into my real life, which was my comic book Soulstar, which I wrote post-aneurysm. But Chris says, I hate doctors. Maybe we can go tomorrow. That's always what he does. He puts it off till tomorrow. He's good about everything else in his life. But when it comes to connecting with his mom and doing this one thing, he always pushes it off till tomorrow. That's when he realized the key to breaking the loop would be to not push it off. So now we go back to present day. He gains focus again. He's holding on. And he says, but mom? And she says, yes. And he's looking at the smudge marks and the smudge words. And he says, and now he's remembering the opening scene of the story where he runs up and goes and writes on the board. But now he can remember beyond closing his eyes. And he remembers looking up and seeing the words, break the loop, say yes to. But it's really say yes to toy hunt is what I was going to put in there. So then Chris is now back in the modern day, 52, stares at his mom, stares at the same words, but they're smudged, but he remembers what they say. And his eyes widen and he says, I think I have enough energy to go for a quick toy hunt. And Leon is like, you want me to drive? And mom's like, no, Leon, you stay here, enjoy the party. Because obviously there's still a party going on. So I wanted the characters to be aware of that. But also mom is excited. This is what she's wanted for years. She's wanted to do another trip like this with her son. So she says, like, no, you guys go back to the party. This is just for us. This is something we used to do. So everyone goes back to the party, and Chris is now exterior toy store. Chris is sitting in the car, 52 years old. They just finished shopping. Mom gets into the car, starts it up, and Chris is silent. He's not focused anymore. He's now down the rabbit hole of memories. His hands are playing the arcade again. And his mom sees this, and she just reaches in the back seat, pulls out the toy from one of the bags, and puts it on Chris's lap between his fidgeting hands. And Chris's hands stop twitching and then wrap around the toy. And she says, I saw you eye it in the store, but you were having trouble speaking. So I figured I'd get it for you for old time's sake. He was always your favorite. And that's when Chris whispers the name Soulstar. And then once again, Chris is 17. So now he's back in that memory from before. And he says, he's holding the toy with a big smile. And he says, thanks, Mom. This is going to look sick on my shelf. Can't wait for school tomorrow. Barry is going to be so jealous. So this is all new stuff. Again, I didn't plan for any of this ending. This all naturally came from me going, okay, how do I tie this back in? How do I bring Barry back in? How do I keep it hopeful and happy? How do I reward all the characters for the journey they've been through and reward the reader with some happiness for some of the misery they've been through? Barry's going to be jealous. Interior car, mom is 70, Chris is 52. And she's like, school? He says, yeah, I know we just moved here. So now Chris is still thinking he's 17. So he's talking as a 17-year-old in his 52-year-old body. And he says, yeah, I know we just moved here, but I made a friend, Barry. He collects toys and comics too. He's going to freak out when he sees that I have this. And his mom says, you remember high school? And she hugs him. And he's confused. Like, what's that for? She's like, I'm just happy. You never stop fighting, do you? He says, fighting what? And she's like, nothing. Let's go home. We both had a long day. And he says, okay. And they drive off. So now this part here, that ending where he hugs her, she says, what's that for? You never stop fighting. pretty much after the never stop fighting, do you? I feel like I can do better on those last few lines of dialogue and end it better. But this, it's a first draft, so this is where I stopped it. But this, I thought that was a good note to end on. So I do want to end on that note, but I just might finesse the dialogue a little bit more if I can, or have, like, when I work with the writers, bring this to Nate and all of them and see what their feedback is. But I'm not a but yeah, I'm not like 100% on the ending. But I do like the beat it ends on. So yeah, so let me go back in and let me read some of these comments. I missed a lot of comments. I'm sorry. All right, let's see. Andrew says maybe a very, very almost inaudible clock ticking in the background. Oh, you mean in the scene where they're on the porch? Maybe. Yeah, like, it's like time. So time's already a theme, but what I like about time is that, like, I actually don't have a single watch or clock in this whole story, and that was semi-intentional. To be honest with you, like, it was something I was aware of. I think I had one scene where the alarm went off, and that's what woke him up in the morning, and I took that out. So I actually don't have the only people mention time, like when she says, "Oh, he's usually on time to work ish," like when Claire says that. But I actually intentionally kept clocks and time out of it because I felt the story already had that as a theme. But maybe something in the background that could be good. Maybe just the ice melting in the tea glass or something. Branch it depending on how the actor plays it. Get some options so they can try it and see if it works. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is I can write for it to be acted, but I also don't know what the overall goal with this is. Like, I can't film this. I'm not a filmmaker. So unless, like, Nate or one of them or someone I know wants to make this, like, it's not going to get made. So that's why I'm keeping the option to where I'll just write it as a story too. So I probably will end up putting all those emotions in there anyway. As a note at this point, the blank is in her 70s. So at this point, she's also needing help. So having Leon be the one to swoop on and pick up the stack makes sense. As much as she wants, she has. I mean, that's the thing. Yes, right. Yes, she's 70. So she does need that assistance. And you're right. And plus we didn't do a lot with Leon in the beginning of the story. So I wanted him to be a big factor towards the end. And I know, like, like, people probably critique it and say, like, oh, well, why isn't there any Leon in the beginning of the story? And it's like, yeah, but his memory's on this loop, and Leon probably just wasn't a part of his life a lot during that loop. Neither was his mom, which is not true in my real life. I mean, me and my brother and mom talk all the time. So that's not true. But I just, again, there's a line, right? Like, of like how much I'm really pulling from my life and how much Chris is actually a character. And I go back and forth. I swing it like a pendulum. So for every time I go, oh, this is from my real life, I add something that is not from my real life. So yeah. Personal note, play with audio for this. It's a dance between clear conveying and information, and using audio is the important sledgehammer the emotional impact needs, but no music or video. So again, I'm not a filmmaker. That's not for me. You don't write that stuff in scripts typically. In my experience, you don't write stuff like that in scripts. That is something you can talk out in a room with producers and a director and actors when you cast them and do table reads and when you're there on the day. Like, those are all things that come from filmmaking. The writer's job is to not really go that deep. If you're writing a book, sure, you have to, because you're the actor, you're the director, you're all those things, you're the producer. But what you're saying here about making audio notes in a script, I would never do that. Some writers do. I personally just never do that. I'm not the audio. I'm not the sound mixer. I'm not that. But that's something, like, if I was watching an edit of the movie with the director, I might suggest it, like, hey, what do you think if we killed the audio in this scene? That would probably make that more impactful. Again, that happens later. I wouldn't start off the bat writing that personally. We're the ones who take care of you feels almost like a through line. As someone with a disability, it hurts to hear, but it's also a comfort to be unalone. I mean, yeah, so that's the thing, is, like, when he says that, I feel like it's one of those things where you have people who say those things that you don't like, like, as someone who, like, I don't like hearing that. Like, do you want me to help you with that? It's like, no, I don't want to I don't want help with this. Like, so I get what you're saying. Um, and I'm sure Chris on some level feels like that, but that's why I didn't repeat the line later. I had Leon say it, but almost like it, you know, I don't know, but that's a good thought. Maybe it is something I could tweak just so it doesn't pass off to the viewer, because you wouldn't want the viewer thinking that was an okay thing to ask. So maybe you're onto something there. That's true. I mean, I put it in there because it may be uncomfortable, but what you're saying makes more sense to me. So that's actually a good point. Let me make a note real quick. Okay, page 9. I was like, where is it? Okay. All right, cool. And you still work. Keep that. Yeah. I would definitely want to keep that. Hallway of boards is a great visual moment. I know sometimes I get like, I can't picture what that looks like. I know what a hallway is technically, and I know what boards are. So I just was hoping, I was like, hopefully that's a good image, but I feel like it would be just like a hall, like a long hallway between bedrooms, just boards all down one side and boards all down the other, dry erase and cork boards, notes pinned to them. And I think that'd be cool. Could look really cool. The boards having those in messages, do list reminders, the wall board's a great way to visually show in single pan shot how hard Chris has worked. That was more important to me. So again, I couldn't visualize what I was talking about, but I did know that it sounded exhausting. Like I was thinking about that. I'm like, just keeping up with like the 4 boards I have is a nightmare sometimes. So I can't imagine if I had like 30 boards. And that's what I kept thinking was, well, nothing shows how hard this guy's worked more than actual work. Like that, they always like show your work. You know, like if you're doing homework, doing a math problem, show your work. It just shows that you worked it out. And that's kind of how I thought of it for Chris, was that the board pan shot needs to be there. Does it? Okay, fair enough. No matter how old you are to them, you are always their baby, and having your child's mind, that is a terror on its own. Exactly. The memory thing with parents. Exactly, Andrew. Breaking the loop is a good message. It is good of you to recognize while you are happy right now, the message is ultimately inspirational one. Yeah, I'm not like, I mean, sure, I go through my really bad bouts of like depression and things like I'm always going to be depressed. It's a constant battle. Like, people are always like, oh, can't you feel better? Or aren't you happy now? Or it's like, well, you can acknowledge, I've learned to acknowledge when I have good days. I think that helps me from going fully over like I used to. Like I used to just dwell and just keep going down and down and down. And I would never look at the good. I recognize the good now. I feel like an asshole for when I don't recognize it. So I make a point to recognize it more now. So that's why I wanted that message in there of breaking the loop is something I always refer to it as getting off your hamster wheel. Like we talk about comic book characters a lot, and I say, oh, they're always stuck on this hamster wheel where they just repeat the same stories over and over. And I think it's just because writers are not creative, and also executives who want these characters to stay young forever aren't creative. But to me, I think that the hamster wheel is not a good thing for characters in comic books, I don't feel. So, and in stories in general. So I always talk about how we need to break through our hamster wheel, but how reflective that is of our everyday lives. How a lot of us, we get up, we go on Twitter, we bitch about things, and we eat our food, and we go to work, and we're in these hamster wheels. And how I may not be happy sometimes that I moved here to Florida, but what it did do is it broke me out of a hamster wheel. I was, whether the hamster wheel was always good or always bad is irrelevant, but I was in a hamster wheel in California. Now I'm in a different hamster wheel now, but it's a different hamster wheel at least. And I do enjoy more days. Like I'll be honest with you, I do like resting more. On my days off, I'm in bed a lot, or I'm laying on this couch behind me. I'm resting a lot more. So yeah. So anyway, we finished reading the script, so I can get rid of it now. Agree, we will be here when you get back is great. Yeah, I think that's a good line. Showing the caregiver is needed as someone helping care for mentally disabled, seizure-prone sibling. Showing the caregiver rewarded is kind of needed. It is. I mean, again, this is a fictional story, so I know that's not always the case in real life, but this is a fictional story, and my goal of this is not to make people miserable. My goal is to give people hope, and so I hope that that's what the story is that it's more of a hopeful story and less of a I didn't want that result. I didn't want that I wanted the caregivers to. That's why the ending is like, I feel like I can spruce it up a little bit more at the end, but we'll see. We'll see what comes up. And the trip is unimportant. The toy hunt isn't about a place. It is the event that is important part. You literally have me in tears. I'm sorry to make you cry. Yes, but you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to understand what you just said. But yes, it's not so much the place, right? Like it's not like it was KB Toys or something that they had to go to. It's not about that so much. It's the experience of it. So like things transport us memory-wise. And although I can only go back so many years, I just had this hope that for Chris, now that he saw the note on the wall and he made it make sense, finally, after all these years, after, he was 39 when dementia started setting in, he's 52. So 13 years later, he finally understood what he was trying to tell himself 13 years ago, which was he noticed a pattern in himself, which was you always say no to mom when she asks you about toy hunts. Say yes next time. Give her a win. And maybe it'll unlock something. So 39-year-old Chris was really banking on that being something essential. And I wanted that to pay off too. So in the end, Chris's hard work paid off for himself, but also it paid off for his family. And his mom changing and being someone who doesn't raise her voice at him anymore and doesn't yell about the things that, that when he's going through problems, her first reaction isn't to yell. She has now had rewarded for that new behavior, which is now she gets to experience her son again in the way she wanted to with the memories he had at the end. So it is. So even Soulstar himself isn't so much the important thing in that scene, but the act of doing it. I almost wrote a scene where they're actually in the toy store. But again, I think of budget sometimes too. So I'm like, I don't know if that we can get like Target to let us go in and film in there with the film at Gorilla style. But I was thinking of that, like a toy, like him and a toy. I mean, we could change it to comic book. We can make it, because I actually have Soulstar comic books. So I could always change it from an action figure to a comic book. But toy hunting is what me and my mom did. So I just naturally gravitated to that. But it was more the, like you said, it's the event. It's not the details. It's just the event itself. Yeah, the dialogue needs cleanup. I agree. But I feel the same way. I'm glad you agree with me, because I feel like the emotion, I got what I want in that scene, but I need to clean that dialogue up. I feel like I just rushed it to finish the script, and that's unlike me. But at the same time, I did want to rip this thing off like a Band-Aid. I was dealing with some heavy stuff here, and I cried a shit ton while writing this book. I cried a shit ton. I'm not kidding. I was a lot of tears. So I just wanted to end it. And I was like, someone, I can bring it to Nate and them, and they can help me button up the last like 4 lines of dialogue. I was like, but I need to get the fuck out of this story right now. So yeah. Also, apologies for basically dominating the chat. Mine's just training. That's okay. I mean, I don't even know who's here still listening, if anyone is, but I love the feedback, man. I really do, Andrew. And I know there are people on this channel that watch me that go through things in their lives that we don't always address. I know sometimes it comes out of me here and there in different streams, like live streams, where I'll like vent about something. That's why I wanted to write this story, and I wanted to show you guys a different side of me. I always critique other people's writings, but I thought it would be fun to write something, share it with you guys, and then go through it and critique it like an editor. And we did. We found things in here that I don't like in the story. So it's not my negative responses aren't exclusive to Donnie Cates and other writers when it comes to reviewing their work. I am like this with my own stuff all the time. And actually, that I say that's a first draft. The last page is a first draft, but the stuff leading up to the last page probably went through like 10 changes each page. So I probably did technically like almost like 10 drafts. And that last page, I just kind of like flew through really quickly. Because it was like just a half page, and I was like, I don't know, whatever. I got the emotion there. But the dialogue I'll fix later. So that last page was like an add-on, and it was it's a first draft. But the rest of it is not so much first draft, but I'll still find things I don't like. It's certainly formatting. There was a formatting nightmare for that one. Doing everything in Word and it doesn't come out too good. So it's amusing that I can find a great visual moments, and my mind works heavily visually when my eyes have always been terrible. It's amusing, I suppose. Even post cataract surgery, my eyes aren't that great. Sorry to hear that about that. And but then yet here you are typing and communicating with me, and I'm picking up on everything you're saying. So I hope you don't beat yourself up. That's one thing I've tried to learn about myself is when I get frustrated or when I see lack of progress, I really beat myself up. Like I'm bad at it. It's used to be borderline abusive, I would say. I'm certainly not as abusive as I used to be towards myself, but I certainly know that feeling. So I hope you don't beat yourself up over things like that. It's, you're doing great, and it's great to have you here in my chat tonight talking to me. I also love that the payoff isn't like this miracle. It is just peace, acceptance, letting that connection happen is the reward. And as a caregiver and someone who needs help, that is enough reward. My thing about life that I've realized is that the small victories are the most important. Or I guess maybe that's not the way to say it, but I appreciate the small victories a lot more than I used to. I think him fighting all these years for 13 years to literally get to a point where when he finally comes out of it and he's aware of where he is, and then he starts slipping, he finds a way to slip from one memory into another timeline, into the 17-year-old memories because of something he wrote on that board. That in and of itself is a small miracle. And so I would argue it is. It is a miracle. Miracles to me aren't these big flashy things a lot of times. Miracles to me are these tiny little things that occur all around us that most of the time we aren't even aware of. That to me are the miracles in life. And that's what I wanted here. In this story, I was like, it has to end as I was getting there. Because like I said, when I started and the story opens with him writing on the board, I didn't foresee him using what he was writing on the board to trigger something to happen at the end of the story. That was not my initial plan. I just wrote. I was just like, just write and see what happens, and put in these things from your journal and listen to this, soundtrack by Mike Shinoda, which ended like an hour ago. But just like put all that stuff in, and then, be an editor after that and work on it and almost like clay, like, shape it, like help shape the clay. So, so that's what I did on this. And, once I realized what he wrote on the board, I said, okay, whatever he writes on the board, it's not going to give him all of his memories back. He's not going to all of a sudden be back to a normal person and all that. Like that's ridiculous. Like that is, that's going too far in the happiness realm. I said, but if he can just give his mom this reward, even if it's the only time he slips into the memory of his 17-year-old self, even if it's the only time it happens, it's enough. It's enough to show that all of their hard work and struggles and suffering has paid off at least once. So that was important to me. And like I said, Chris is not a miraculous or spectacular person. He's just a guy who has just had a bunch of jobs, and he's an everyday person, I feel. And so his victory shouldn't be a massive one. It should be an everyday victory. And so, so I'm glad you appreciate that. The thing I despise in inspirational stories is it often feels like these people get the reward you aren't good enough for that. This feels like enough for a win to feel real. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. You don't have to thank me for that, but that's very nice of you to say. I agree with you. I mean, me and you are on the same wavelength. I feel it's cheap when you give your characters more than is achievable. I think it's too much. It would. I mean, I guess they should achieve more. They should have high aspirations and achieve high. But in this regard, with an inspirational story, I agree with you. I didn't want the inspirational thing to be like, oh, now he's normal again, and everything is back to normal, and he can have access to all of his memories all at once, and he's just back to his regular self. Like, that would have been the worst way to end this story, I feel. My problem is due to having no ability to schedule. I can't really manage my time. Well, I'll tell you this, man. As someone who wasn't very good at managing time before either, I'm way worse at it now, with forgetting how much time passes sometimes, or losing track of time. That's always the hardest thing for me now. It's like, videos, I'm like, oh, I'll post videos every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm already like a week in. I can't even do it. I lose track of stuff. I had 3 days off last week, and my 3 days off, I cleaned this room and I redesigned it and redecorated it and everything like that. I took everything out of here and put everything back in after I redecorated. I filmed that, and that video went up today, right before this episode. It's Seek and Destroy episode 116, where I redecorate the room. I filmed for 2 days cleaning the entire apartment and redecorating this room. And that's all I had to show for it. So I am not on a schedule anymore. I can't do a schedule. I've decided to not do the Black Adam show. So I'll probably delete that first episode sometime soon. I'm going to stick with the Venom vlog and do episodes when I can. And then I'm going to do the show on Thursdays with Alex, because it's good to have a schedule. So no matter what, I know on Thursdays I do that show with Alex, and it's fun. So I'm going to keep doing that every Thursday. Seek and Destroy is going to be, I'm going to lean more on that as my second show, which I've always said I was going to do, and I keep going back and forth on it. But what we did tonight is the step in the direction I want to go in. Sometimes I'll create things and I'll share them with you guys, and we'll talk about it here on the show. Sometimes we'll just do long discussions about bullshit. Sometimes I'll draw, and we'll talk while I'm drawing, and I'll have the camera aimed at the board while I'm drawing. So I'll probably move my camera over here and work on my drawing table. So that's what Seek and Destroy will be. It'll literally be parts of my life. I think I'm going to spoil Echo and take him to get like pampered at like a PetSmart or something soon. So that'll be an episode probably. I'll go get my vaccine. If I feel like filming that, I'll film it. I don't know if I will, though, to be honest with you. But I'm just saying, like, Seek and Destroy was always a vlog about my life, and I kind of pulled away from that for a while. I'm going to do more of that. So I think that'll be fun. I think that'll be a good way to have Seek and Destroy, Venom vlog, and Beyond the Source Wall with Alex. And then I do Resident Evil over on the other channel. I think that's a good balance. And once I can come up with a schedule, because right now I'm trying to pin down my work schedule. And since it kept changing for the past few weeks, it's been tough. So I've been unable to even start trying to pin down a YouTube schedule. So starting this week, I'm on the new schedule. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll get used to that schedule, and then I can get back to doing a thing here on YouTube. But then I'm having a procedure coming up, so it's going to be a lot. But we'll make it work. When have I ever not had a lot on my plate? Take what wins when you can. Take what wins when you can't. When you can and when you can't. Yeah, I gotcha. I knew what you mean. Freaking autocorrect. That's okay. Yeah, no, you take the wins when you can. Yeah, I get you. Well rewarded effort. All depends on the story. Comics could get away with rebooting his brain here with slice of real life. What have you written? What you wrote is about what you can expect. True. All I can say is, Seek, is I'll be around. Left eye is still healing and isn't feeling right yet, but I'm down for the ride you're taking us on. Well, that's very nice of you to say. Anyway, I need to sleep. You've been pretty cool to hang out with. You've been really cool too. Get some sleep, Andrew. And I'm going to be going to bed here soon. We've streamed for now for 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's 1:30 in the morning. It's a lot later than I thought I was going to stream. But what I'll do is I'll probably walk Echo because it's probably going to start raining soon, if it hasn't already. So I want to get him out there before it rains. I'll probably eat a snack or something before I go to bed. But I do appreciate you hanging out with me, Andrew, and everyone else who is hanging out and watching this, who went through the episode with me, who went through the story with me. Now you see what it's like for me as a writer, what I go through, what I talk about, how I'm sharing something personal. Next time I write something and share with you guys on the channel, it won't be personal. It'll be something purely fictional. But just expect more stuff like this and more things about me and my life. Someone pointed out to me recently, said, you're doing the Black Adam show, you're doing all these shows, and you think that people come to your channel sometimes because of the things you're talking about, like Venom, Black Adam, and all that. He goes, but I think, Seek, over the years, you've accumulated a following because people want to know more about you. And he goes, and you are so hesitant sometimes to share things because you think it'll push people away. And I think that's right. I am like that. And he goes, so why don't you just say, fuck that, and just do things that just be yourself. And he goes, and if someone annoys you, tell them they're being annoying. And if someone pisses you off, tell them they piss you off. And he's like, just keep being honest. Like, he's like, you're a pretty honest guy. He's like, just keep being honest and share more of yourself. And he goes, and so lean more into the Seek and Destroy show. He goes, because my friend, he actually is upset. He's upset that people call me Venom Vlog. He's like, dude, Venom Vlog's a show you make. People need to call you Seek and Destroy. He's like, that's a cool name. And he's like, you need to embrace that. So I'm like, maybe. Seek and Destroy sounds very aggressive, but I think that's why it's funny, because it's contrast. It's like an oxymoron. Like, I should be more Seek and Rebuild or something. But I appreciate you guys letting me share this story with you, and hopefully you guys stuck around. Hopefully you guys like this kind of content. And if you do, I will definitely make more of it in the future. And I'll probably make more of it anyway, but it'll be making in the future. So yeah, so all right, now all my windows are closed down. 5 people in here. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for hanging out so long with me. And as you can tell, I got a little choked up in that story, but that made my throat dry. So I'm gonna go get a drink and walk my dog and go to bed. I hope you guys all sleep well. If you're just now popping in, go back and watch this episode. I wrote a short story. You can read it on Instagram right now at Venom Vlog on Instagram. And you can check it out there. And it's my 3 posts from today, yesterday, April 19th. Now it's 4:20. So if you got it, smoke it, I guess, and have a good night. Andrew, thank you for being here. Cam Frazier, everyone else, I appreciate you popping in. Riddle John, Tristan, happy birthday, Tristan. You guys be good. I'll see you all in the future.